On tonight's show, we talk about the Patriots. We talk about when a proposal is actually a contract, and have you had enough snow yet? Stay tuned. You kidding me? When I saw Curse juggling that ball and he's going like this, and I'm like, oh, please let him drop it.
I can't believe that he caught the ball at the 5. I didn't think that was a catch, and then they replayed it. I was like, oh my god.
I was screaming at the TV.
It's over.
I scream at the TV anyway. My wife's like, they can't hear you. I said, they can today. It's like I'm just losing my lunch. My daughter's there. We're all screaming. And then when Butler intercepts that ball at the end of the game,
that was beautiful.
I was beside myself. I'm screaming. I'm hugging Jessie. I'm hugging the dog. And I finally got around to hugging Joy, which she really appreciated. Just phenomenal game. So huge shout out to the Patriots. I thought that was fantastic. All right, let's get right down to it. Have you had enough snow?
No, I want more.
I'm done.
I want more.
I am so done. I'm just like, and it's funny, because Facebook is blown up all day today because, they didn't have a school delay. And I don't know that I can actually pin that on the superintendent because snow delays or closing schools are always tricky things. Unfortunately, her track record hasn't been good because the first one she should have called a snow day, she didn't. The second one, we were supposed to get snow and it ended up raining all day.
Yeah, well, she has been a superintendent in New England for a while, right?
I would think so. Well, Pittsfield is part of New England, so yeah.
Okay, I'm just saying. I drove to work this morning and it was excruciating. 122 was not touched when I went to work this morning, and 31 was. I mean, they had plowed most of it, but it was pretty bad. I was amazed that they had school here. I know a lot of other schools canceled, so, but hey.
I can't take her to task for that, and I know there were people on there that were kind of questioning it, but like I said on Facebook, on one of Lily's sites, I think it was Spencer Bulletin Board, and I said, look, if there's a question about it, keep your child home. If it's safe, and safety is the parent's main concern. And there was one parent who had said, geez, I took the kids to school and I got them there, and then I realized, man, maybe this wasn't a great idea. I mean, that kind of thing is always going to happen.
Yeah.
But having said that, I think, as far as I'm concerned, I think the DPW has done a great job. And thanks to Steve Tyler and his guys, this has been extraordinary snow event after another, because we've never, in all the years I've lived here since 1982 in the New England area. And I have never seen us get this much snow in this
quick a time. Yeah. I think the DPW, working with what they have, they've done a good job. I think it's disappointing that they don't have more guys and more equipment, because there's a lot that could be done. There's a lot more that could be done. Pulling out of some of these roads, it's scary. I know pulling out of the end of my road is scary. You're halfway out onto Main Street.
Is it over there? Before
you see another car coming, you're like, it's a little frightening. But they don't have the extra guys to come out and do the snow removal, and so it's too bad that the town doesn't give them what they need, money-wise to do extra. But I mean, with what they have, they've done a great job.
Well, I mentioned that today because the one common theme I've been hearing almost consistently all the time, and from some people that I consider to be fairly smart, is the fact that people are plowing in driveways. Well, there's no way I've ever seen anybody, and I used to plow when I was in school, when I was in high school with my dad, and it's like there's no way to plow a street and plow it from curb to curb without plowing in somebody's driveway. That's the nature of the beast.
Well, I mean, you talking about the town plowing the driveways?
Yeah, I mean the town. When the town's plowing the streets, they're blocking in people's driveways because the
but that's
berm's going to
normal.
kick up. I mean that's going to happen.
That's
physics.
normal, though. I mean, the town doesn't care about your driveway. You care about your driveway.
Well, yeah.
Anybody who complains about it needs to get out there with their shovel or their snowblower and just deal with it. I mean,
It's bizarre.
They got to get the road cleared. You got to get your driveway cleared. If
This storm
Yeah.
these storms have been so bad. It's gotten to the point where I've taken my snowblower and actually gone into the street first and cleared there's probably a 60 foot path in front of my house from the fire hydrant to the house, and I just clear a whole path there first. So when they finally do come down the street, there's nothing really for them to push
there's
into
not
my
a lot
driveway.
to push around. Yeah,
That's the only thing I can tell you.
I don't know. That's a very strange complaint. There's a lot of things to complain about.
It's
Having your
consistent.
driveway. I mean, we live in New England. We've done this before. They've plowed the driveways in every year that it snowed. So I don't know. That just seems.
And the other thing I'm hearing is they're talking about clearing the sidewalks, and it's I know I tried to look it up today. I know there's it's Section 6, Article 5 or something like that, where it talks about obstructions on the sidewalk. So I would imagine you could consider snow would obviously be an obstruction. And they do saying that, you are responsible for clearing your section unless you're elderly or handicapped.
Yeah.
Or disabled. So then they do make accommodations for that. But having said that, we've gotten so much snow. I mean, and I'm not lying, I had because I'm blowing it up there, I had a 6-foot berm on the sidewalk, and I'm like, you know what, it's gonna have to wait.
Yeah.
And 2 days later, here comes the town with the sidewalk thing, and they're doing second time I've ever seen it that they were actually making a real attempt to do, any place where there was a sidewalk, they were really making an attempt. They were trying to widen the roads.
I've always seen them do Main Street, but
Oh yeah, because of the walkers.
and it's still. I mean, as somebody who runs, I'd like to see them a little bit better done, but. So I don't have to get in the snowshoes or the spikes and try to run, but maybe do them twice. But once again, they don't have the manpower or the resources to go out there and really get the sidewalks right. And unless the town does it. There's an occasional person that does their sidewalks, but I don't really see people doing their sidewalks.
Well, it's because it's tough for DPW because it's and I wrote about this on one of Lily's sites. I said, look, if you remember, we shot down an override. Not that I'm saying that that's the whole reason or that they're trying to make us pay for something, because they're not. They're understaffed. You can overspend. One thing you can always overspend in a town when you're looking at the town budget. You have to stay within the guidelines of that budget on every line item except for snow and ice. That's the one thing you can overspend.
Yep.
So say you mark it, okay, we're going to figure on $200,000 for snow events. That's the one thing they can actually overspend on, and then at town meeting they'll come back in May, okay, we need to transfer $170,000 from free cash into this to cover that. But the problem with doing that is, we only have so much free cash.
We only have so much of it, yeah. Well, I guess my suggestion to people who don't particularly care for the state of the snow removal in town is pay some more money, because these guys are doing the best they can with what they have. They keep the roads passable. Main Street's basically blacktop most of the time.
Yeah.
So, if you don't like it, spend some more money. If not, don't bitch.
Yeah, for my money, I think they've done a great job.
They've done a good job with what they have,
and they don't have a lot.
Yeah, no, I mean there's a lot less guys that work there than than used to. They used to, and it's not like they have new equipment.
There was 14 or 15 guys,
I
possibly
don't
even
remember the
more.
numbers, but years ago there was quite a few.
Yeah,
so.
Kyle said it was something like that. It was
Yeah.
I think there was 15 employees, and they're now down, I think, to 8.
I think they're at 8. Yeah.
So you're
8 or
doing
9.
the same amount of work with half
Yeah.
the amount of people. I think they've done a stellar job. Plus,
Yeah.
they're also paying subs to do this.
Yeah,
you
they've
know,
got the privates.
subcontractors.
Yep, they got the privates that come in and do stuff, but then they still come around and they widen the roads and after the privates come through, I know in our neighborhood, the town comes through with the loader and they widen the roads and everything.
Yeah, I've seen Eben a couple times coming down with a big front end loader.
They do the best they can with what they have. So I mean, I have no complaints about them. My complaint would be, give us some more money so we could do some more. But we're really bad at funding things. Not that I'm spiteful or that I.
Not that that's a personal
Not
complaint.
that I have a personal issue with how we fund things.
Or not.
or not fund things. Yeah.
and then expect to have things done. I mean, you know, that meeting point where it's like, okay, well, we can no longer do these services like with the library. The library can no longer do the things that they were doing, and the
Yep.
library has always been a real thriving part of this community,
Yep.
and much more so than I even realized. Because when my kids were little, we were there all the time, and then as they got older, of course, you know, they get involved in other things, and
Yep.
I usually don't use the library. But the library, once when I was looking at they were doing the override, and they were, you know, everybody was coming in and doing their presentations, and Mary Baker would come in. I was amazed at the level of services they provide. So at some
They did a
point, I'm
lot with
hoping
what
that
they-
comes back.
Yeah, they do a lot with what what little they have, and unfortunately, they haven't been able to do as much. But
And it's littler
you got to fund them.
than it used to be.
Yeah.
This is a shout out to Kyle, because Kyle's more or less our director and our head in charge of the circus. And Kyle's last name is Gibbons, not Pierce. So my apologies to Kyle. Now maybe Kyle will start talking to me again. Good friend of mine is named Kyle Pierce, so I always get him and Kyle mixed up. Another thing we wanted to bring up: nomination papers are available. There's 3 seats that are coming open this year on the school committee. Ms. Messier, Mr. Norquist, and Mr. King. 2 of them are from Spencer, and Ms. Messier is from East Brookfield. So if you're thinking about it,
So other than Kurt, you want to take bets on how many people are going to run?
it's, you know, last time it came right down to the last possible minute for somebody to actually submit papers. So it's like I think that's what's going to happen again. There was actually talk of a seat being open, you know, and you know they really didn't know what they were going to do. So at the last minute, I think it was Miss Messier that stepped up and said, you know,
I'll be amazed if 3 people actually run. I mean,
couldn't
I
do
don't know. When I was on, Chris didn't seem like he wanted to run again. You know, none of us. You know, I mean,
Oh.
none of us were crazy enough to. Once you do it once, you know,
it's like watching
you're
your
asking
parents.
for punishment. You know,
It's like watching your parents, you know, walking in on that. It's like, yeah, you can't get that out of your
Yeah,
head.
no,
It's
it's
the
just,
same thing. It's
that's painful.
you want to
That's
talk
just
about
painful.
watching sausage being made. It's,
Yeah, I
And
don't know.
Speaking of sausage being made, I had a conversation with somebody, and today I had a conversation with a second individual who would be, let's just say, would be in the know. Okay, it was a source, and he confirmed something that we had heard about the contract with Mr. Suter. Now, for those of you who don't know, I've been contacting our superintendent, asking her for information. You know, I'd like to see a copy of this contract, because in the meeting, when you watch the school committee meeting, Kevin Hayes, the chairman of the board, brings out the members after executive sessions and says, now we'd like to we ratified the contract, now we need to
Right.
vote on the contract. So I'm assuming that there's actually a physical contract somewhere. Well, it turns out
Well,
that
that would be
isn't.
implied when they come out and say we're going to vote to ratify a contract. That would
Silly me.
be the
know, I'm like-
natural assumption.
So after making some phone calls and after speaking to someone today, it was verified that there is no contract, and the reason for that is because it's an appointed position. And because it's an appointed position and the state is overseeing us, we actually have to submit this appointed position to the state. Now, why the superintendent couldn't tell me that?
Now, is that
beyond me.
because he doesn't have a license?
Possibly.
Because I don't remember.
Pardon me.
Let's see here. I don't remember having to ask the state's permission to hire Julie.
Now, see, you know better than that, because I wasn't on that committee.
I don't remember having to go to the state, and she had a contract. I remember sitting down and discussing the contract. I wonder if because he doesn't have a license, and I wonder if because he doesn't have a license, they have to go to the state to get permission to do it. They have to show that they went through the steps.
That's what I'm wondering.
Because if you're going to hire somebody that isn't technically what the state considers qualified, you have to show that you went through the steps and that there are no other qualified people
Right.
to do the job, and then go from there. So I wonder if that's what
That
it
might
is.
be.
And I'm wondering why they didn't just explain that.
Kyle, what were you asking? I'm sorry, the volume was so loud. Was Julie hired before or after the overseer?
Oh, jeez. I believe just before.
I want to say, That's Kyle saying maybe that's why, because he was hired, and that's entirely possible. It's a feasible.
If I had to guess, it would be something to do with the licensing, because I remember having that conversation before, and when I was on the committee, I remember talking about people that were licensed and people
Right.
that weren't licensed, and what the steps we had to go through if we wanted somebody that wasn't licensed. We had to show to the state that we've gone through all the steps, we've interviewed people.
You've done the protocol.
There isn't anybody else who's qualified with a license that's available for the position, and now we've moved on to this next step. I think that's probably where they are. But it would be really nice if they explain that to everybody. That's the thing. You come out in a meeting and you say, we're going to hire this guy and we're going to ratify this contract, and then you go and, as a citizen, we can request any information we want.
Right.
All right, well, can we look at the contract? Well, there is no contract. Well, you just said that you were ratifying a contract. No, we weren't really ratifying a contract. We were doing this. Okay, well, why don't you explain it to everybody so we can understand what you're doing? Because this looks like you're doing something underhanded, or, that's just not quite legit. And, with it being who it is, that makes it look even worse. It's not like this is some random guy that nobody knows that doesn't have a license, but would be really great for the position. It's a guy that everybody knows and has a relationship with, a couple of members on the board. Come on.
And this has been, let's not forget that one of the members on the board, who I might add also voted, would have been Mr. Cloutier, who voted
Right.
to agree to hiring Mr. Suter.
Right.
I would think that would be illegal, considering it's a conflict of interest, since he served on the board just prior to that with Mr. Suter. He served on the Spencer Ambulance Squad.
Whether it's legal or not, it can still be kind of slimy. They're,
Not kind of.
you can, just because that's the thing that gets me about stuff that happens in town politics. Just because it's legal doesn't
make
mean
it
that
right.
it's not slimy, and you really shouldn't do it anyway.
Well, there is a conflict of interest. Just
Yeah,
like
yeah,
there was
there
a conflict of
absolutely
interest
is.
with the selectmen last year, and I brought it up to the attention, and it was like whoosh, right over everybody's head. Because they just, at the end of the day, it just didn't matter. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter who it was. What happened was it was somebody who had worked with these people on the
Yeah.
board, and there was clearly a conflict of interest.
Yeah.
But conflict of interest in this town doesn't seem to bother anybody.
Well, I think because they look at it as, well, what are you going to do? What are you going to do, really?
Well, who's going to care is more the question.
Well, that's it. If Cloutier votes on something or doesn't vote on it, whether it is a conflict of interest or not, who's going to say
At the
anything?
end of the day, it doesn't matter.
That I don't know.
Rules
It
are
just,
for other people, because these are the same people that accused you and Paul and Matt McCarthy and Mary Gershman and everybody else on that board of hiring behind the scenes and not doing things publicly. Well, what could be more public than hiring Mr. Suter?
We were accused of doing everything behind the scenes. The budget that we supposedly developed, we had open meetings. Nobody showed up.
Yeah, I was at those meetings.
But and they weren't even weird times at like 2
No.
o'clock in the afternoon,
Those
like
were
some of
6
the
o'clock
more
at
recent
night.
meetings. But I wish they had explained it better. I wish they had said, we talked to these people. We offered these positions to these people. It fell through. We moved on to this person. They don't exactly have a license. So this is the steps that we have to go through to get them on board. And this is our plan to get him a license, to watch over what he's doing. How is this whole thing going to work? I don't know. It seems like there's a lot of what ifs and how are you doing this? And they're not explaining anything to anybody, but they're still going to turn around in a couple of months and say, hey, we need some money. And we've done a great job. We're doing a wonderful job. We need some money, but they're not explaining anything to anybody.
Patting themselves on
So-
the back. The last meeting, it was Mr. Cloutier getting up and they ratified a contract apparently with Unit C, which is great, and how quickly it was done. It took a year and a half, which is what I believe it took you guys the last time. So I guess quickly is all a frame of reference. It's what your frame is and what the reference looks like. You know, it's like
Yeah,
I
no,
guess
I-
that's the kind
yeah.
of thing that drives me crazy.
No, they're trying to make it look like they're doing things right. So because it's coming to that time of year, they're going to need their money.
Oh yeah.
You know, and they're coming around. They're coming around looking for it. So,
You think?
but I think this is a really bad way to start, and I think I think it should have been explained better. I think the superintendent should have explained it. I put more of it on her. Why didn't you explain everything? Just lay it out. It's a brief presentation. I've sat through so many
Oh.
friggin' PowerPoint presentations being on that committee. What's one more? Give us a PowerPoint presentation. Tell people what a business manager actually does, because in this town, we haven't had a lot of success.
No.
So you might want to lay it out. You know, what is he going to do? You know, and to hire somebody, appoint them, ask them nicely, whatever they did. You know, why don't you lay out what they're going to do for us? You know, I'd like to know exactly what they're going to do. I'd like the specifics, because it is our money that they're spending. You know,
Well, you would think in a district
kind of bothers me.
that has had this many issues, especially with credibility, with
Credibility and money.
Well, yeah. I mean, without the credibility, we're not going to give you the money.
Right.
And that's the bottom line. And I've said that time and time again. I'll invest in education in a heartbeat. I'll invest in the teachers in a heartbeat. I'll invest in whatever you want me to invest in. Just let me know that my money's being spent well.
Right.
But I don't have that feeling. And this is just a prime example of this committee. And this committee, to this point, has been anything but open is in terms of, well, this is why we're doing this, and let us explain that we did have a couple of business managers set up for this job. And I know for a fact these that fell through, because I watched the proceedings, and they had a business manager. Then they were back to the business manager search again. Then they had a business manager. Now we're back to the business manager
Right.
search again. And maybe you can't go through the details of why it happened, and I'll explain why it happened in a second. But the point is, be honest with people. Just, you know, I can take somebody telling me the truth, but I can't take somebody going, oh, we're going to ratify the contract. Well, there is no contract. And why are you voting on
Right,
something
right.
you have no control over, because you don't have to vote on this?
Well, what I find interesting is that they accused us of not. Let's see here. They accused us of not discussing stuff enough. Okay.
Doing things behind closed doors.
They doing things behind closed doors. Now, I remember sitting in those meetings and arguing about everything. The chances of there were 6 other people on the board. There's 7 of us, and 2 or 3 of us agreed at the same time, but we never all agreed. How these guys are able to just agree on everything, and you know, we were accused of that. But I remember sitting in those meetings in the library and in the auditorium, and
Oh, they
just
can get heated.
arguing and arguing and arguing. We didn't agree on anything. And I don't want them to be as dysfunctional as we were, but how about a little discussion? Like, why didn't anybody on that committee ask to have this explained? Not one person asked, lay it out. They just, okay, we're good with it.
And keep in mind, they're representatives
And
for our community.
And you can do that, even if the appointment, the contract, whatever. It's not the school committee's deal to hire a comptroller. It's all the superintendent. You can still ask the superintendent. You can ask the superintendent anything in open session. You can ask the superintendent why her car is the color it is, or why she parks where she parks.
public
You can
meeting.
ask anything you want. So why not ask some questions? But we're all left with, oh, what's going on? We got a comptroller?
And you can get up a citizen input. To be fair, you can get up a citizen input and ask,
But they
just
don't have
expect
to
an
answer. Because another thing that I learned from being on the school committee is don't ever answer. And you're not going to get answers unless somebody gets up there and pisses off a member and drags them into an argument, which
Seen it happen.
I've been dragged into arguments before at Citizen Input. They're not going to answer anyway.
No.
And the superintendent's probably not going to answer unless you insult their integrity, and then they may. they may say something, but I just don't understand how nobody explained anything, and they don't seem to have any intention of it, and the superintendent doesn't seem to want to explain it to anybody or provide any information on it, which I find a little disheartening.
Yeah, and it's well the fact of the matter is that you've got 7 other members up there who could certainly be bringing some of this stuff up and saying, why don't we explain this to the folks at home or the people in the audience, and without credibility, without building up the fact that, hey, listen, we can trust you. Sorry, I don't. There's nobody on that committee I'm overwhelmingly built into trust.
I just can't believe that any of these people could possibly agree with Mr. Cloutier all the time. I don't think that's possible for somebody to do that. So I just don't understand. It seems to me like it goes the way that those members want it to go, and that's it, and there's not a lot of discussion. I don't know what happens behind closed doors. I'm hoping there's some discussion behind closed doors, but it just seems, like it goes the way that they want it to go, and people don't want to speak up about it, and that's too bad.
Maybe they just all get along. And that's entirely possible too. Now, I'm not being facetious. Maybe everybody just agrees with what, because let's face it, Vinny's running the committee.
Yeah.
There's no two ways about it.
Yeah. I can't imagine that they all get along, but for the 3 years that I was there, and with all the different people that were on and not on, none of us agreed.
No.
On anything, because everybody had different levels of understanding, and they needed to ask questions to try to get up to speed and try to understand it the way the other members understood it. And then a lot of times you don't agree with somebody. You don't agree with what they're doing, and this is kind of a big thing. I mean, there's a big picture here. You're not bringing in a licensed business manager. You're creating a position to circumvent that in the hopes that maybe they can get a license down the road. That's a pretty big thing. There's a big credibility issue. There's a big financial issue, and this is not a good way of showing people, oh yeah, we're going to be fine, even though the money's screwed up and the position's turned over quite a few times in the last few years. That's like, instead of hiring another superintendent, we create a position for it, and say, everything's going to be just fine.
Since
We're not gonna worry about
2010,
it.
there's been three business managers.
Right.
That's a lot. Well, look at how many superintendents
Well,
we've had.
from the time I started until the time I left, there was 4 or 5 superintendents.
Deb Zablocki,
Well,
Ralph Hicks,
we had Ralph, we had Reza,
Deb,
we had Deb, we had
Malvey.
Malvey.
5.
So 4, and now we have
And now
5.
with Dr. Crow,
and
we've
now we
got
have
5.
Dr. Crow. So
That's not
so
usual either.
No, that's not, and that's actually one of the criticisms from the state was, you guys have a turnover problem in all of our positions, but especially in management. If you look at our the principals, those turned over quite a bit, and that was, the state commented on that. You guys turn over these administrative positions too often. It's not healthy for the district.
And there's some positions that need to be turned over. Let's be honest. But that's
Well,
a
there
story
were
for another
positions.
time.
There were positions that needed to go. I mean, some of the stuff that happened needed to happen. People needed to move on, but some people just left. They threw their hands in the air and said, "You know what? I'm not dealing with it." I'd love to sit down and talk to Julie and find out why she decided
are
to
you
resign.
kidding
But
me?
I don't think anybody wants to hear that. I mean,
No.
that's a perfect example of getting frustrated and going to look for greener pastures.
You don't sign a 3-year contract and leave halfway into it unless you're not happy. And I've heard the rumblings that there was no
Right.
there was no love lost between her and Dr. Malvey, which brings me to another point. The two business managers, from what I'd heard a rumor. The first business manager we tried to hire, somebody had actually poisoned the well. And if you follow the timeline, you can see how that happened. Then they have the search again, and then they get a second business manager. Again, right at the last minute, I was told, okay, this fell through again. Now, talked to 2 sources, and it was confirmed. One of them confirmed this for me today. And this is what we always try to do. When we hear a story, we'll talk to somebody, And if we talk to somebody and we confirm it with a second source, then we'll go ahead and talk about it. Second source today confirmed to me that this allegedly, let me put a pronunciation on that, Dr. Malvi is the one who stepped in and told one or both individuals, allegedly told both individuals, that they want to go someplace else. This is a toxic district. You don't want to work here. It's going to be bad for your career. So, surprising me, not in the least. Not after seeing the way Secret Ted operated. That would not surprise me in the least.
No matter who it was, something turned the candidates off.
Oh, big time.
You know,
Somebody turned
how
Julie off.
how much of an effort was made by the school committee to keep her or bring the other people in?
I don't know.
You know, when it comes to a business manager, it's the school committee that's dealing with it. So they should be the ones that are trying to bring this person in and reassure them and make them feel, like this is going to be a good thing. We need you here. And if they're not, and somebody else is whispering in their ear bad things about the district, then, they're not going to go.
Well, look at what happened. I mean, look back at what happened when Malvi was here, and that September before he left, which was months and months before. Chris King got up at a meeting, I believe it was August or September, and Chris King got up and said, I think we need to talk about exploring the options of looking for a permanent superintendent.
Mm-hmm.
And Mr. Cloutier got up at that time and said, oh no. And this is at a time, now keep in mind, there was a lot of superintendent searches going on at that time. There was a lot of action going on. There was a lot of people in the pool. It was a very large group
I
to
remember
choose from.
arguing about it when I was on the committee. We needed to, Malvi was there, but he was a temporary position, and we needed to start looking, and that was the argument. We're not doing it right now because, we need to wait till spring, and the pool will be better. And that's not,
The pool got chlorinated because all the good people were already
there wasn't
taken up.
much.
And
I don't think there was going to be
know?
much for this district anyway.
No, I think that
I think it was
slim.
pretty
That was-
slim. There's not a lot of people beating our door down, but we're not doing anything to help ourselves.
No.
To make people want to come here. They see how dysfunctional we are. They say how the town reacts to the district, how the towns react to each other. I mean, we're in a regional district with one other town, and we hate each other. Let's be honest with each other here.
There's
We
not a
don't
lot of
like
love
each
lost.
other.
It's unfortunate.
I don't. From the beginning, you got that feeling. From the beginning, when I first got on the committee, I got that feeling that Spencer and East Brookfield didn't like each other. The select boards did not like each other. I think that's what the driving force is that the select boards don't trust each other at all. And then you go from there. There's a lot of money involved, and there's so many different contentious points about this. Money being the main one. We're paying too much for what we get out of the district, and we're not happy with this direction, and we're not happy with that direction. So, that's you start there and you keep going downhill.
Well, look at East Brookfield. East Brookfield, and this is one thing I've always admired about the folks that run that town. They are fiscally responsible.
Yep.
They will not spend a dime if they can get the state to help pay for it, or the feds to help pay for it, or find an alternative they always look for the more innovative or the more flexible way to pay for something
Right.
without having the town having to incur a lot of costs. And I respect that flat out. Their FinCom runs like that. Their selectmen run like that. So they have a district like this that goes, that's gonna break. But we're going to wait until it breaks.
There's a lot of things that they do that really bother me, and a lot of things that they did in the past that really bother me. But they're definitely looking out for their town.
There's no question.
They do a very good job looking out for their town.
I don't think there's any question about that.
Like I said, it still doesn't mean that I like even half of the things that they've done, because I think we suffered the district on a district level from my involvement. I think we suffered a lot. But they're looking out for their town, and anybody that doesn't think we have a bad relationship, look in the newspaper.
Oh, it's horrible.
We don't get along.
It's not, and it's, you could go back and forth about, this one did that or this one did, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, there's never been a real true meeting of the minds, which is why they're looking into leaving. And from what I understand, the state is paying for this, helping to pay for this study. Again, fiscal responsibility. You know, they're helping to pay for this study.
And it's a
who
long,
knows where it's
drawn out
gonna go.
process to go through this, and then when it comes down to it, they have to convince the state. You know, the state wants towns to regionalize. They don't want something like this to happen, but they're looking into it. You know,
If they could find somebody to regionalize with, I don't think the state would have any heartache with that.
if they found another district to go into that would take them.
So wait and
But
see.
I think you're going to have to find a district that'll take them too, because I mean they're going to look at the history of their relationship with us. You know, the other town has to agree. It's not like the state's going to step in and say, "You're going to regionalize with this town because we say so." They can do a lot of that "we say so" crap.
Oh, yeah, they can.
They do that all the time.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
great. It's great when the state puts their foot on the back of your neck. But they can't do it in that instance. The other town has to agree. So, you know, that would be like us trying to regionalize with somebody else. All of a sudden, we have to go from being that horribly dysfunctional cousin to being the guy that everybody wants around. And both towns are pretty dysfunctional cousins at this point.
Well, it's kind of funny because that kind of goes into the next thing we were going to talk about. The Brookfields regionalized their ambulance service, which I think that's a great idea. North Brookfield, Brookfield, and East Brookfield are all paying a portion now, and they're all
Good
part
for
of this
them.
regional service. Now, back when the Spencer Rescue Squad was still the Spencer Rescue Squad with Paxton, they said, you know, once we realized that Paxton was no longer going to be our partner, who knew? Okay? And
Surprise.
I'm sorry, I'm being facetious. And that happened. Then there was talk, the selectmen had the director of the Spencer Rescue Squad in and said, you know, let's look into regionalization. Well, he looks into regionalization and comes back and they don't want to regionalize with us. I was shocked. I was absolutely stunned.
I am stunned.
Nod,
Yeah.
wink, wink. And then they turn around and they regionalize together, which I think is fantastic. It's too bad that couldn't have happened here. But again, I think that goes back to that back and forth thing, and people are saying, well, look, you don't want to do this because of A, B, or C, or
Right.
whatever, whether it's real or it's false or it's
Well, why
imagined,
would you
know?
regionalize with somebody that you don't trust?
Not only don't
You know,
trust,
there
but
has to be some kind of trust there.
at that point, from what I understood, it was like Spencer Rescue Squad was, you come to our house and
Right.
I'm going to run this, and nobody
That's great
trusted
if you
that.
have trust issues. That's a good way if you're going to go into a negotiation. That is a great way to approach it.
No, let's get
if there's
married. I'm not
already-
going to sleep around on you. No, we're
That's
gonna
a
be
great
fine.
way. That's a great way to start a relationship. Is on completely on your terms, but you know it's not a surprise that they're going to regionalize. It's not a surprise of any of the issues that we've had with them.
I think it's good for them.
Yeah, and if it works for them, it works for them. I just hope that we are going to be okay.
I just hope at the end of the day that, like I said, and like I said, this is nothing against folks in Spencer Rescue Squad that work there every day and put their butts on the line. You guys do a great job. There's no two ways about
Well,
it.
there's a big separation. There's a big difference between the people
Management.
who are doing the job and the people who are managing the money. It's just like the school district. There's a big difference between the teachers that are doing
Oh, yeah.
their job and the administration that is doing whatever it is that they're doing.
Reportedly doing their job.
Whatever it is that they're doing, I'm not sure.
Neither are they. I mean, we're still hearing things about, in fact, somebody brought this up today, and this is a shout out to Linda Stanlin and I guess the guidance counselor up at Wire Village. Apparently, they were out there shoveling the walks today. Now, on one hand, I applaud that. You know, thank you very much, Ms. Stanlin and the guy. I don't know who the guidance counselor was, but thank you both for getting out there and making sure the kids are safe. My question, and you know what I'm going to ask, remember when we had a head of maintenance and the school committee got rid of him?
They get paid, those nice folks that were out there shoveling get paid a lot of money to do a specific job, and it's not shoveling.
No.
That's why we have certain positions laid out, and good for them that they're out there doing it because it needed to be done.
Absolutely.
But shame on the people who are supposed to be doing it, which brings me to driving in here tonight. I wasn't going to say anything, but now I'm going to. So I'm pulling in here tonight, and they're plowing. Good for them. I parked, and I'm looking at the entrance to the Blue Building, and it's like a tunnel. There's this little tiny walkway. I mean, if you've seen the Blue Building, it's a big
building.
It's a big building. There's a big deck on there. You know, there's some space. There's a little tiny tunnel up to it. I mean, the sides of it are pretty high. There's a little tiny tunnel right up over to the doors. It kind of opens up at the door so they can actually open the door. What are they doing? Like, we're gonna get more snow. They have nowhere to put it. Seriously, maybe
Get it off the deck.
break out the snowblower, break out the shovels, and remove some snow from areas that are causing, safety hazards. I mean, that's the superintendent's office. What do the rest of the schools look like? I've heard that they look horrible. Somebody talked to me about Lake Street, and I heard Lake Street was a disaster.
Yeah, I heard about that.
I haven't been up to Wire Village lately, but the last time I was up there, it was in pretty bad shape. Somebody's going to slip, fall, and throw a hip, and that's going to cost us a lot of money. A lot more money than just having somebody go up and shovel the damn sidewalks.
Well, I had heard about Wire Village. People were posting on Facebook because they were absolutely up in arms over the fact that this was a few weeks ago, the sidewalks were completely iced over.
I heard about that, yeah.
And the bus drivers were having to park in the way they normally would. They couldn't do, so they could only drop off one bus at a time, and the kids would have to go across the ice and then get on the sidewalks, which are also ice.
Right.
It's like, why doesn't somebody just go out there and scrape the sidewalks?
I heard there was some issues with space and buses at Lake Street. There were buses
taking
going
them
in strange directions and not moving where they normally would move because there's room issues, and then there's kids trying to get around, and the sidewalks are all screwed up. And if it's anything like the Blue Building, there's probably little tunnels for everybody to travel through.
It's like a,
we're gonna get another
mouse in a maze.
We're gonna get another foot of snow in a couple of days, and it's.
There's no thinking ahead in this district. When it comes to stuff like that, it's just catch as catch can.
And you know what? There's a guy out in the parking lot right now, and I can hear him. That's not a good sign. He's driving a truck, like a 25-year-old truck, and the thing sounds like it's about to explode. He's plowing with it, and good for him, and he's getting the parking lot cleared. But that doesn't reflect very well on the school committee and the people that are supposed to be keeping everything running. And that goes back to your director of maintenance. If there was a director of maintenance, maybe there would be more preventative maintenance happening. So these vehicles, but that's an old truck.
He's out there wailing on it. When I pulled up,
I can hear him right now. He's out there wailing on it.
You got to get the job done.
It sounds like he's stuck, the poor guy. I mean, it's not.
Yeah, matter of fact, he does sound like he is stuck.
He does sound like he's stuck, and he's right here.
We'll be done in 15 minutes. We'll go out and give him a push.
If he comes through the side of the building, we may be in trouble. But I don't know. It's too bad.
It's one of those things where it's like, again, it goes back to being foolhardy. It's penny wise and pound foolish. When we had Steve Dragon was the director of maintenance, there was a couple of school committee members that didn't like him. So next thing you know, his $55,000 a year position is gone. But keep in mind, his first year in his position, he saved us $200,000 in heating costs
the boiler
because
cleaning.
He had the boilers cleaned.
Yeah.
That's the kind of thing that drives you nuts.
Look at the sander. I mean, the sander would have been fine if they had cleaned it.
Well, that's a district-wide issue.
Oiled the chain. I mean, it's a sander. It has sand with salt in it, and you get a chain.
Corrodes.
And it corrodes. Yeah, it's just
one
of those things. I mean, you have access to science teachers. Ask a science teacher. I mean, they'll tell you it corrodes. We have the resources.
Oh, we have the resources.
We have the resources.
We just don't have the power to use those resources. Okay, moving on. Summer Nationals. This has been a kind of a hot topic.
A hot topic that nobody knows anything about.
Yeah, just real quick. I spoke to Donnie Berthume. I spoke to Adam Gaudette. I spoke to Gary Woodbury. And from what I understand, the Agricultural Association is not putting it on. The Celebrations Committee is not putting it on. And to the best of my knowledge, the selectmen are not putting it on, although the permitting process will come before them.
What you're saying is nobody wants to get their thumbprints on this train wreck.
Yeah.
Okay.
And to be fair, I
Just
don't
saying.
know. I don't know if it's a train wreck. I know a lot of people that go to summer nationals, and they're like.
Now they
"It's
used to do
great."
it in Worcester.
They stood in Worcester.
When did they stop? Do you know when they stopped doing that in Worcester? Was it a couple years ago?
2000, 2 or 3 years ago, Kyle
2 or
said.
3
I think
years
it
ago?
was 2011, Kyle. I think you're right. I think it was like 2011.
Do we have any idea why?
There were, from what I understand, and this is nothing. I tried to get a hold of a friend of mine who works for the police department who's involved in this stuff, and I asked him, and I said, was there anything going on? And he said, we really can't say anything.
Right, 'cause nobody
And
can
I was
say
like,
anything,
okay, I
God
get it.
forbid.
So I'll read between the lines.
Right,
So I
right.
don't know. I know that there was a history of late payments, but apparently everybody
Well, I mean,
eventually
it was
got
just
paid.
it would be a good idea just to look into it a little bit, and have somebody that does want to get their thumbprints on it, just so we know what is going on with
Well,
it.
I guess
'Cause it was in the newspaper that it's happening, but
Well,
nobody knows about it. So
Kim Ring wrote that.
well,
The permitting process hasn't even been
I have
before
nothing
the
to
board
say
yet.
about Kim Ring.
I just his website is at Moscovian's website, who's the gentleman who's putting it on.
Mm-hmm.
His website is promoting the dates and the times and
What
all
is
this
the
stuff.
date?
The 4th of July weekend. Now, the celebration committee typically does this 4th of July celebration. They do the fireworks.
Right? Don't they do like the family day?
Right.
And
Now, what I understand is the way this is supposedly working towards is the celebrations committee is willing to concede that as long as Moscovian will pay for the rides, for arcade rides and stuff like that, for the fireworks, which is great because it defrays the cost for the celebration committee, so it's kind of a win-win for them. Question becomes, does this really go well with a family fun day, which I can't say that it does or it doesn't. I mean, it's a bunch of gearheads getting together and showing off cars. There's some burnouts involved and stuff like that. I don't have any idea if that's going to happen or where that would happen. But I think this was kind of, my opinion, Tony Pepe and I guess Chris Woodbury and have been talking to Mr. Moscovian, and they're thinking outside the box. So I applaud that. I think that's a great idea because Tony's been talking about, along with John Stevens, doing kind of like a farmer's market, doing like a bazaar, trying to do different things to bring people out here.
I would say they have a few months to explain it. It might be a wise idea just to explain it.
Yeah, I think there needs to be more information.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing to add on to Family Fun Day. We're gonna do a car thing, Family Fun Day, some fireworks. It could work.
Yeah, I mean, they're talking about having a beer tent up there. Whether or not that actually takes place, I don't know. There's
A beer tent. That could be interesting. That could be very interesting.
well, then the crux comes up, and you know this from working the church every.
I do the beer
summer.
tent
You
at
do
the
beer
church
tent at the
every
church.
year. It's hard enough doing it at
It's
the
a-
church, let alone doing it at a friggin' burnout
Yeah,
competition.
because
Holy
Catholics, man,
crap.
we go up there and it's like, I want my wafer and I want a 12-ounce right now.
I
It's
mean,
like-
people come up, they have their food, and we're packed. We got the band, and we're packed the whole time. Just trying not to get in trouble, I mean,
there's
I
a
can
lot to
hardly
it.
imagine you're going to need a whole extra police force just around the beer tent just to keep everything in line.
Well, that was the thing I was questioning when I was talking to some people. I'm like, my only concern is, number one, we get paid. If our force is out there, or if we have to hire cops from other towns to come in, we need to make sure that we get. This is, being a businessman. My thing is, I want to get paid something up front. I want to get for this. I'd want to
Yeah.
get paid everything up front. Make sure that all the paid details are taken care of. Make sure the cops and security are taken care of.
Well, I
you know,
think getting paid, making sure that nobody's going to die.
which is important.
Well, those are two biggies.
That's key.
Let's get paid. Let's keep everybody alive, and any other little laws that might be broken, we try to keep that to a low roar.
When we want to talk, we're not talking about Hell's Angels.
Alcohol, cars, fireworks.
What could go wrong?
I mean, come on. That could be a lot of fun. That could be a lot of fun, or that could turn into a dumpster fire real fast. So they just need to explain it a little bit better to us. That's all.
Yeah, I think like I said, I applaud the selectmen that are involved with this for trying to get something else going. It's
Not that
thinking
it
outside
matters.
the
I just
box.
live here. I mean, it's not that it. I mean, I really don't need an explanation.
Well,
I
people like
suppose,
they're
but
going to clog
people
downtown.
are gonna ask.
They're going to cause traffic. It's like, who's going to benefit are the people who on Labor Day weekend do the yard sales. If they hear that they got 50, 60, 70,000 people coming in for a 3-day weekend, You know, I mean, there's a lot of ancillary benefits to this because there are people who are going to benefit from this.
Oh, yeah.
You know, maybe
Yeah.
the restaurants. I mean, they keep saying, well, no, they're going to have food vendors up there. It's like, I've eaten at the Spencer Fair. I'd rather take my chances at the restaurants. You know, we got some really good
Well, it
restaurants
could bring in
this
some people
town.
for the whole weekend. I mean, there's that having functions like that. From the races that I do throughout.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah,
You know,
see
I
a
mean,
lot of this.
you do one of these races, and there's 15,000 people show up to a little town. In fact, they're doing it out in Barrie three times.
In Mass?
At Barrie, Mass. There are 3 major national races, Spartan races, Spartan
Oh, no
and
kidding.
Battle Frog, coming to Barrie. You're looking at 10 to 15,000 people per weekend
It's a lot of folks.
in that town. That brings in a ton of money.
You can't not
You know?
get some kind of benefit from people coming in and spending some money in town.
Well, I mean, you look at some of the things that they do. At some of them that I've been to, they'll get a hold of the schools. They'll rent their parking lots and they'll bus from the parking lots. You make money
Run the
that way.
shuttles, yeah.
You tell all the restaurants in town that there's 15,000 people coming for a weekend. You might want to beef it up a little bit. And they get ready and they make a ton of money because everybody, you know, when you get done, you go to the festival, but then you're looking for food, you're looking for a place to sleep. You know, that brings in a lot of money. If they play their cards right here, they could actually make some money for the town. But, you know,
I think
Hey.
there's good ideas to this, and it's like any other idea where you're talking about something different. It's like you're not going to know unless you give it a shot.
yeah,
You
no,
know?
I think it's a good idea to give it a shot. I just think, you know, just like everything else, business managers, superintendents,
Do your homework
yeah, let us know.
and be public about
Let
it.
us know before you do it, please.
Yeah, it's like don't spring us on it. We'll
Give us a
see it
heads
on our
up.
website.
Yeah.
Oh, they're coming here. Apparently, you didn't tell all the select.
Well, I still get a kick out of they hired a comptroller. The hell's a comptroller?
Yeah,
that was
that's-
the
yeah,
biggest question I got for 3 days.
What's a
was,
comptroller?
What's a comptroller?
Well, it's kind of like a controller, but there's benefits. You know,
Yeah, there's an explanation.
there's always an explanation, and maybe that's the point with this entire town would be start explaining things.
Start
And
explaining
I
things.
think this whole thing with the summer nationals will, and we'll see what happens, and hopefully it's going to be a good thing.
That would be good.
Just want to remind folks again, there is a speed limit in front of the schools. Please don't hit our crossing guards. They don't bounce the way they used to. I understand that one of the lights was out.
Were they speeding?
Don't know that they were speeding. I don't even know all the details other than what I read in the paper.
Yeah.
But apparently, you know, who knows if she was talking on a cell phone, but she planted her, she hit the crossing guard and put her on the roof of her car.
Really?
And she banged her head on the windshield. I mean, I was going by right after it happened. I didn't see it happen, and I thought a dog was laying in the road. I thought somebody hit a dog, and I looked down, and it's a crossing guard. And I'm like,
Oh,
oh,
my
gotta
God.
be kidding.
I heard about it. I didn't even read the paper and the article in the newspaper. I didn't see it. Well, then again, I don't read the Telegram and Gazette on purpose. But
No personal
I didn't.
reasons. No personal reasons.
I didn't
of
mean to
course,
come
no.
across as spiteful. I'm sorry.
No. And she wouldn't take it that way.
She wouldn't.
either.
She wouldn't. She'd just write a nasty article about me. But no, that's horrible. They need to. I don't know.
Please exercise
Please,
caution.
please
I
use
mean,
caution, especially during the winter when it's snowy. You can't see anything. There's children and snow and
Yeah.
other cars everywhere, and yeah, it's a bad thing.
And keep in mind, especially with some of these kids, and I posted something about this on Facebook the other day. I said to the girl I saw, I scared at the crosswalk at Tremont Street in Boston. I think I owe you a pair of underwear. This girl is sitting there and she's texting like this. The light turns green and she just keeps walking right out in front. And I hit the brakes and I hit the horn just out of habit because I'm a Boston driver. And I'm laying on the horn and I swear to God, you should have seen the look on her face. I was like, I felt so bad, but it was like, you're not even paying attention.
Consider it a lesson
I'm like,
learned.
come on. So keep in mind, there are kids crossing that that crosswalk. There's
And it's
kids walking in the
dangerous.
streets.
There's a lot of snow. There's people walking in the streets, and no matter how frustrating it is when somebody is walking in the streets or running in the streets,
Perhaps
it happens.
you.
It happens.
Perhaps you.
It
I haven't-
happens.
I haven't
I
come
run in
across that
disguise
yet.
so people don't run me down.
I want to see you running because I'm going to start trailing you in my truck doing 10 miles an hour behind you. I'll be like, I'm right behind you, Josh. Let's see. What do we got? We got, how much time we got left, Kyle? Kyle says we've got 4 minutes left. All right, real quick. I put a post up last week. Not going to mention what the issue was. It wasn't a big deal, but there were some people on there who were talking and saying, we don't think you have your facts straight. Just let me be really straight with this. We try not to put anything out that we can't verify through at least 2 sources. If we can do that, then we go ahead and we run with the story. We try not to be ridiculous. We try not to put rumors out there. If we hear a rumor, we try to verify it with at least 2 sources. So please be aware of that. Also be aware of the fact if we do make a mistake, we will be the first ones to admit it. We always have, we always will, whether it's on the site or whether it's on this show. So that's just that. Please clear your fire hydrants. There was a big fire in Boston today, and apparently burned, quite a bit of it burned because they couldn't get to the fire hydrants. If the firemen have to clear your fire hydrant, your house could be going up in flames. Please do it for them. Kyle, can you put up the Spencer Head Start dinner PSA we've got? This is being held by the parents of Spencer Head Start. It's going to be Friday, March 13th, 2015 at 5 p.m. at the Knights of Columbus, 10 Meadows Road, Spencer, Massachusetts. Please attend. This is for a great cause, and Mark Gustafson would really appreciate it. So, Mark, shout out to you. Good job for putting that on. Also, the DPHS Show Choir, Valentine's Dinner. Do we also have that PSA, Kyle? That's December 14th at the Spencer Country Inn. Please show up if you can. The show choir does a great job. They're called
on
Shockwave.
Valentine's Day, huh?
On Valentine's Day. Would you be my Valentine? Joy's not really sure she wants to be my Valentine anymore.
I've got a date at Taco Bell that night.
I'm not touching that. We'll talk about that later. Spencer Fire Department is still looking for volunteers. If you're interested, if you're thinking about going into the fire department, these guys are excellent at training. Give them a shout. Call Bob Parsons down at the fire department. Please like our Facebook page, and you can view old and current shows at YouTube. Go to YouTube and just type in Spencer Cable Access into the search. And Lily Lund is still starting the conversation. Her pages were blowing up today. Spencer Open Forum, the Spencer East Brookfield Collaborative PTO,
Yeah.
and the Spencer Bulletin Board.
That's a lot of sites.
Tell you what, she's got a bunch of people that help her, and they just do a fantastic job. So Lily, big shout out to you and your helpers, your admin staff. They do a great job, and I'll tell you what, it was blowing up today over the delay and everything else.
Over the
and
weather?
It was like the weather, and people were talking, and it's kind of amazing. Those sites started out really small, and that's people's go-to when they want information on what's going on locally, and she does a really great job. Plus, like I said, she's the only woman in Spencer that I'm actually in fear of. So, love you, Lily. You're doing a great job. Anything else, Mr. Cote? It was a pleasure having you with me tonight.
No, it was a pleasure to be here.
Well, it's not the same thing as having you in my ear telling
Because
stories.
there are things that I can't say out here that I can say in there.
All right, folks. So we just want to say thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you in 2 weeks when our special guest, I think, will be Mickey Dean. He's the head of the Spencer Booster Club, and he runs a bunch of other organizations, and we're going to have him in. So our show will be at 7 o'clock. We'll see you then. Take care.